everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're going to talk about what is the best way to read comics. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent, and today we're talking about types of comic books. What is the best way to read comics? We're going to go through the pros, the cons of all this stuff and kind of just meditate a little bit on why I like certain types of comic books better than others. So first of all, what is a comic book? Well, I'm going to lean forward here to my table to get some examples here. But first of all, you got your floppies, right? This is what everything comes out in. Every week there's a new set of comic books to read. This is the free comic book day version of Spider-Man and Venom. And then you kind of read these, you page through them, you go, man, that was a fast read. And then you go, all right, well, how much did I pay for this? Well, this one, nothing. So this one was actually pretty worthless. Actually, this free comic book day, I was not that impressed. And then you take it and you put it in a bag and board and you kind of file it off. Now, I don't have many bag and boards comic books anymore. I used to have 12 or 18 short boxes full of comics back from 2003 onward to, 2012 probably. So almost 10 years worth of collecting. And I got tired. I would actually reread these and I would take out a storyline and take out 6 or 7 that were bagged and boarded. And I honestly cheated a little bit. I tended to double them up, to put 1 and then 2. That way I didn't have to pull out a whole bunch. But you'll find a lot of these at conventions and stuff like that, just bagged with a single comic book inside a bag and board. But I would take them out, I would read them, I would take them out ever so nicely, out of the tape and pull them out and make sure you don't get the tape stuck on the cover, and then flip through it and all this stuff, and then read it, and then put it back in the board, and then pick up the next issue and put it in. Honestly, I think at that point in time, that's when I started traveling internationally, and that's when I got my iPad, and I started reading comics on my iPad because I didn't have the room to take stuff on these work trips to stick in my backpack. Can you stick a bunch of bags and boards in your backpack to travel with? Absolutely. Are they going to keep you entertained for 3 weeks in France while you're working? No fucking way. So then I switched to digital comics. So this is the way that I kind of get my comics on a weekly basis right now. I get them on my iPad. This is the Comixology app. This is the new version, the shitty version. They ruined Comixology. Thanks for nothing, Amazon. But you can read stuff on here. You can page through it. The way that I like to read them is not the smart panel. I don't know if this is showing up on the screen or not, but I just like to read them single page. Just as if you were to read them in a regular comic book. And honestly, this is the iPad Air from a few years ago. Let's get to a page that has stuff on it. And it's pretty close to the same size. I know there are newer versions of iPads out there that do have screens as big as this. It's just, I don't know that I want to carry a larger iPad with me. So I like this original size. I think it's 10.9 inches or something like that. But the text is good enough that you can read it single page and do that. Or you could, if you use Comixology, you can do the panel by panel thing. You turn it sideways, it gets really big, and you can do it that way. But I like to read it full page so that I can see the cool things that the artist is doing with the panel layout. Reading left to right, going top to bottom, the way that you're actually supposed to read them. So I do have a lot of digital comics. I've been buying them since 2011, I think, maybe a little bit before then. Exclusively weekly, all my weekly stuff is on here. I started buying collections and things like that. Then I got a house, and then I was like, well, I did have a bunch of trade paperbacks upstairs when I got married, over 10 years ago. And then now that we moved into this bigger house, I doubled up my shelving. I went from one shelf that was pretty full of trade paperbacks. Now I have 2 shelves. I'm probably going to move on to 3, maybe 4 or 5. I don't know. It's going to grow slowly, I hope, but that's not what has been happening ever since we moved into this new house. It's just I see spaces in the holes of the things that I loved when I read them, and I'm like, I want to seek them out. The problem is they're all out of print. So what is on my shelves, right? What do you got? Well, most of what I have are your standard trade paperback. They're the same size as a regular comic book. They're a collection of issues. This is Scott Snyder, Sean Murphy's The Wake. This is on my to-read pile, so why I grabbed it. And honestly, this is how I like to read comic books nowadays. Like, I will read on my iPad if I'm on my lunch break or if I'm on travel. I will read stuff there. But honestly, all the new stuff that I've been buying has not been digital. It has been these trade paperbacks, either at discount on Ollie's, on eBay, trying to fill holes, or at comic book stores, or Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all that stuff. I do like the trade paperback format because it's regular size, because it's a little bit lightweight, and because it fits on my shelves nicely. Like, most of my shelves are trade paperbacks. I do have like this bottom shelf down here below the camera that does house the oversized editions that I have, and I don't have many of them. And those are like this DC Rebirth hardcover or this Planet Hulk oversized hardcover, which I think they relabel this as an omnibus, although I got this when it came out a little bit, I think when World War Hulk was going on, and I didn't realize that this was oversized at the time when I bought it from Barnes & Noble, I believe, and I brought it home and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is massive. But I know this is like the rage out there right now, these omnibuses, because of the oversized art and things like that. So this Planet Hulk omnibus is pretty good. It's pretty good size. This deluxe edition of Rebirth is a nice read. I do like the size of it, I guess, the oversize of it. But when you add in more issues, like this is a 12-issue storyline, this gets a little bit heavy and unwieldy. My personal beef is I hate dust jackets. I hate them with a passion. So this is what it looks like on the inside. So if I'm reading a hardcover, I'm going to take the dust jacket off and set it to the side and do it that way. Honestly, I like the print on board stuff, like this DC Rebirth Deluxe Edition I picked up. I do like that. I do like what Deceased was doing for all their hardcovers, and I hope they continue this. I think there's going to be a third volume of the main series. I know I've got a couple over here. There's at least 4, so we're going to get a 5th one. But I like the foil that they've done. I like this ribbon on the side and the art on board. I do like that. I don't have to deal with a freaking, what's it called? Dust jacket. I really like that. The Earth 1 series, when they originally come out in hardcover, are like this as well. Art on board, a little bit more glossy with a ribbon and stuff like that. Or not a ribbon, but just like the side binding kind of thing. I do like that a lot over your standard hardcover, which is a little bit bigger than your trade paperback because it's got this edge around it. But if you took, again, I'm leaning out of frame, if you took a comic book and stuck it right in there, it's the same size, right? So this is my Brightest Day Volume 3 hardcover I picked up at a used bookstore, which are actually pretty good finds. If you can find a decent used bookstore, you can find, sometimes, it depends on the bookstore, you can find some stuff that's out there that's out of print for at a discount. Now, there's one around here that most of the time you're buying books for half off, like the cover price. Sometimes you're buying it for cover price, sometimes you're buying it for over cover price. Depends on the bookstore, I think. I feel like this one that I've been going to, and they do restock pretty frequently, which is nice. They kind of price their stuff based on availability, or if it's in demand, they'll check eBay. So if there's something is high on eBay, typically the used bookstore that I've been going to has been marking it up a little bit. But if it's out of print, I might be willing to pay a little bit of a premium, not too much, not eBay prices, but $10, $20 over there. That's that. Then you have the compendiums, right? So this is a Invincible compendium. This thing is massive. This is like 50 issues or something like that, issues 0 through 47. This thing is massive. The nice thing about this compendium is that it does have everything in here. I'm just paging through it. It's in color. The Walking Dead compendiums are in black and white as they were originally collected. No one has said yet, or at least Kirkman has said, like the deluxe edition of the issues that they're releasing now every other week, he was saying like they're not going to be collected for a long time because he wants you to buy those single issues. But I'm pretty sure in about 10 or so years we'll probably have compendiums of The Walking Dead in color, at which we'll see if I trade out my 4 black and white versions. I'm not quite sure. But not every compendium is made the same. Like these Invincible compendiums are nice because they do have the covers to each issue in here. Like issue 21. Apparently the Spawn compendiums, which I am kind of interested in getting because I do have these older Spawn stuff. They're down here. I don't know if you can see it there, but they're down here. The older Spawn collections from, I guess it was 2005, 2006. These guys right here, they were collecting 20 issues at a time. They're not all made equally. Like I've had, I think it was volume 5 or 6. I had to take back to a comic book store at least twice because the spine broke on me. So if they're making these compendiums the way that they're making these, this Invincible one, I'm interested. But the thing about the Spawn ones is they don't have the covers inside the issues. It just says like with a number, and that's kind of a bummer. So I know the camera's shaking because I'm bubbling it. But these Spawn ones were okay. They're printed on some nice paper. The other issue was that their covers, the way they did it, was they just put a little box down here with kind of a black and white kind of sepia toned image here. So it didn't really show you the cover. So that's, they had some great covers in these Spawn issues. I'm not sure why they're not highlighted. Like, look at this one. It's Sam and Twitch in a thing, but you can't really see it. And you can't really make it out what's going on down here. So I've been thinking about upgrading these to the newer compendiums if they're going to do the entire line maybe. I have read all 6 of these that came out. This is volume 4. So I've been thinking about that. But overall, like what do you like to do? I personally don't have any of the major omnibuses, like a Final Crisis omnibus or an Infinite Crisis omnibus, mainly because like I already have my Final Crisis stuff is up here. Or Infinite Crisis. I have all those in trade paperback, so I do like to read in trade paperback. That's just me. And honestly, the weight of it, like this 12 issue one is uncomfortable enough for me just standing here holding it. I can't imagine reading a massive omnibus, a 1,000-page omnibus that's like this thick. I have trouble. I haven't even started these Invincible ones yet because they're so massive. I know I would probably read through them, but man, they're heavy beasts. So I can't imagine making it the paper quality that's in these oversized editions, adding 1,000 pages and just kind of like lobbying it on my lap. I know that's another thing I've seen online is I've seen people like, get like a cookbook holder for their omnibus or something where they can like hold it up and they don't have to actually hold it with their hands. I think that's cool. I like the idea of an omnibus. I like the idea of a compendium. It's just the size and the weight of it all, for me, makes it very hard to hold or very inconvenient in terms of reading. Like, I don't want to be reading something. I want to be interested in the story. I want to be turning every page. I want to be engrossed. I don't want to be battling a book, right? And I feel like that's sometimes what happened with me with the Walking Dead compendiums is I was battling the book a little bit because I got tired of holding it a certain way, or I was moving it around to get just the right position for me on the couch if I was going to lift my leg up and prop it up against my knee or, put it on my chest or something like that. Like just fiddling with the book the whole time. Whereas with the trade paperback or a hardcover, these are light enough that you can kind of hold it in one hand. I could read this to you right now and just read it. It's so comfortable. And that has to do with the paper and everything. Also, but I like the trade paperbacks. I don't like the hardcovers. I know that's probably like a cardinal sin amongst comic collectors. But I've been looking at some of the hardcovers that have come out more recently, and I'm just like, man, they look really massive on my bookshelf. Like, I like how these they're all very compact, and then you just add the hardcover part of it, and I feel like the bookshelf, like you could not fit all these books in hardcover on the original standard size hardcover on my shelf. Because you would run out of room. So like I figure like everything here, if you put it in hardcover, would take up at least a shelf and a half. So then you're talking about another space issue. So if space is not an issue or you've got a big room to move into, fantastic. But if space is an issue or maybe weight's an issue or, I feel like the trade paperback is your best bet. Although I kind of hate that it takes longer for the trade paperback to arrive half the time, depending on the company. Now, like, it seems like Marvel will put out a trade paperback first, and then they'll put out a hardcover, deluxe hardcover later, right? Like the same thing happened with Thor Complete Collection Volume 5, just came out a few weeks ago. I picked that up instantly. I got them all, right? The people that are waiting for the hardcovers are waiting even longer for the oversized deluxe hardcover. So it feels like that's what Marvel's doing. They'll put out a trade paperback, then do a deluxe, and then maybe an omnibus later on. Like the first arc, or the first half of Jason Aaron's Thor run came out in omnibus recently. I've been seeing videos on that, and I'm like, man, that is a nice looking omnibus, but I've had all that stuff. Like, you can read it, and if you want that stuff in omnibus format, you're gonna wait another, I don't know, a year, 2 years maybe for them to finish it. That seems a little unfortunate to me, whereas I have the entire Thor run right down here already completed. So that's just me. I feel like the waiting thing is a little bit different. DC seems to do the opposite. Like, they'll put stuff in freaking hardcover first and then do trade paperbacks much later. Like, I'm collecting I decided to get the Tynion run with Jorge Jimenez art because I thought it was really strong. Wasn't a fan of the Tom King stuff, but I've got the 2 trade paperbacks they've released so far, although there are like 5 hardcovers out right now. So I'm waiting for those to get released. And so now I'm like patiently waiting that to come out. So I thought that was a little weird. Another thing, Death Metal. They had a whole bunch of trade paperbacks come out with the deluxe hardcover of the main event. And I was like, well, I read that event digitally on floppies, so to speak. And I was like, I felt like you kind of needed some of the stuff that's in the trade paperback to understand everything, all these different tie-ins and side stories and stuff. And I was like, if you're going to have a trade paperback of most of those, I'll wait for the trade on Death Metal. You know what I did? I ended up waiting another 6 months for them to release the trade paperback of Death Metal, and I finally have it now. So, you know, it's a little bit of a weird thing between the companies and stuff like that. You know, I have seen some Marvel trades. I haven't really picked up any newer Marvel trades other than like these big complete collections lately, because for whatever reason the Marvel trades, that while they're on like glossy paper, they just really shrunk down the size. Like your regular trade paperback, we'll pull up the Wake here. You know, this is on some nice thicker glossy paper. DC's kind of done away with this paper now, which I love. Now they're doing like this matte paper, similar to what is in this Deceased hardcover. So that is a little disconcerting if the paper quality is going to go down. Like overall, what's it going to be? That was the nice thing about these newer trade paperbacks, is they were all glossy. Like my older ones of JLA from the Byron Hitch era, or like Preacher, all my Fable stuff is all matte paper. Now, well, the Preacher's a bad example because it's on some freaking great paper. But the Fable stuff that I've been reading, I'll just put this down here, is on some older paper. Like Why the Last Man is on some really cheap paper. And it's like, man, I love having all of the volumes and the individual issues, but like Fables has a compendium out. They have 4 of them. You know, I've seen the compendiums for Why the Last Man, and they're on nicer paper than the original trade paperbacks that I have and have had for 10 years or so. And I'm like thinking about getting rid of those just to get the compendiums because they're on a nicer paper. Like, does this make any sense? So I don't know where to fall half the time. I feel like since I just read Why the Last Man recently, I got all the reviews up on the site if you're watching this. If you want to reread it with me, go ahead. Let's do it. But since I've just reread that, I feel like I don't have the itch to go out and get those new compendiums or whatever. Sandman's doing the same thing. They're shoving a bunch of issues together in like a more reasonable sized compendium. Looks like it's going to be 3 trade paperbacks, or 4 in all, of that 75 issue run. So I'm thinking about picking those up, even though I haven't read Sandman, but I did try it. I read like the first 3, and I wasn't really a fan, so I'm kind of hemming and hawing about whether to just read the whole thing and try it that way, or to maybe wait and watch the Netflix show. Like that's what they're kind of getting ready to promote here. I don't know. But for me, I feel like the regular size is good enough. I got pretty good vision. Never had to have glasses so far. You know, knock on wood, 36 here. But I like the trade paperbacks. I like the size of them. I like the weight of them. It's just like I feel like we're losing the battle on paper nowadays because the Marvel paper is so thin. DC's going to this matte paper, and it's like, man, just like And there is a paper shortage out there. This is post COVID-19 pandemic, so you're not going to get this thick, glossy stuff like I got here in this Wake trade paperback. But so it's just, it changes. Everything changes. I guess maybe the thing you could say is, Brent, if you went omnibus all the time, like me, like freaking Omar Valdivieso on Near Mint Condition or Gem Mint on Gem Mint Collectibles, you would not have paper quality complaints because they're always using the best paper on these massive omnibuses. To which I would say, you're probably right. And then I would say, how do you read that on a regular basis? So, I don't know. Again, we're meditating on comic books and their formats. So, let me know what size you like to read your comics in down below in the comments. We will talk to you guys down there. We'll see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.